Hi there, I'm Mariah Parsons, your host of Retention Chronicles. E-commerce brands are starting to shift their strategy to focus on retention and the customer experience. And so we've decided to reach out to top DTC brands and dive deeper into their tactics and challenges. But here's the thing, we love going on tangents. And so with our guests, you'll often find us talking about the latest trends as well as any and all things in the Shopify ecosystem. So go ahead and start that workout or go on that walk and tune in as we chat with the leading minds in the space. Retention Chronicles is sponsored by Malomo, a shipment and order tracking platform improving the post-purchase experience. Be sure to subscribe and check out all of our other episodes at gomalomo.com. Hi everyone, this is the first episode to our special series with our favorite Season 2 moments from 2022. This first episode specifically focuses on our chats with DTC brands, while next week's episode will focus on our ecosystem episodes. I'll give an intro to each snippet, so if you want to listen to the full conversation, you know which episode to queue up. Without further ado, here's Season 2, Episode 2 with Steve Odell, co-founder and CEO of Tenzo, a leading matcha brand. So do you think that's also part of like moving with the times? Like for a brand to succeed, you need that that connection, that person that you're looking at and like know that is attached to a certain brand?
Somewhat. I think
Yeah.
there's a balance there. I think it makes it a lot easier, but like I also don't think it's absolutely necessary either. And like if you think about let's say like do you guys know Liquid IV? They're like a really big hydration company.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's up with the smirk, Brian?
Because Yao, the founder, I can't like this is the problem with video. Yao, the founder, loves Liquid IV, and he like says he drinks one daily.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what he said? Daily?
Yeah,
And
he loves
I
it.
don't. Yeah.
We also had it at our like offsite. Yeah.
I will say though that like for me, I can't prove my own hypothesis, but like Steve Jobs led me to like I was always a big fan of Steve Jobs. Like I got his biography over here, and that led me to the
Yep.
brand. And then as soon as I just saw like the quality and like just the why behind the brand, like that kept me for the last 15 years.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like your comment, there's a lot of truth in that hypothesis, and I think that stands. But there's a lot of things you need to do, outside of product also to make people stick around. And that's like, you need customer service and you need good marketing and education. And you need to stay relevant, like a lot of those things.
Next up, we have episode 6 with Michelle Paulus, Senior Growth Marketing and Retention Manager at Olipop, a healthy soda brand.
Yeah, that's really what we're seeing right now. I looked a couple weeks ago and really did a deep dive in our post-purchase survey where we asked, how did you hear about us first? And beginning of the year, retail was towards the bottom of that list of how people had heard about us. They've heard about us more through, paid ads, social, digital stuff. Now in August, it was the number one place people had heard about us. And so
Wow.
that shift, throughout just, the course of this year alone has really changed how people are interacting with Olipop, initially, which I think really, from a D2C perspective might seem like maybe it's a bad thing. We're going to lose some of our D2C business to retail. But I think with the way Olipop approaches kind of our omni-channel approach to things, I think that's actually a really good thing for our D2C business because it allows people to have easy access to try a can, find their flavor that they like with so many that we have available, and then filter in through buying on D2C. So I think I think of retail as kind of like a billboard for our D2C business and really taking that approach to things. And another interesting thing we've learned this year is we've surveyed people who are buying repeatedly on drinkolipop.com. And we asked the question, do you also buy in retail? Like, are you actively buying through us and in retail? And like 58% of people say they're buying in retail and online from us. So we know people are shopping in a various, ways. And we kind of, as a brand and a business, are kind of agnostic to where people are purchasing, which is a totally different perspective for me coming from a strict D2C business, and being an open mind to, our goal is really just to reach as many people as possible and be where people are shopping, however they want to shop, versus trying to force people kind of down certain funnels.
Well, let's hit on that, because on the emails that Mariah and I received, like once we ordered our Olipop, I would say that's what came across. It was very educational, especially like, hey, the confirmation of the order, and I think the order was shipped. It was all about like, hey, here's why this is good for you. So that's on purpose, obviously.
Yeah. We really, in the last year, have structured our kind of post-purchase journey based on kind of the first purchase, second purchase, and third purchase in terms of what we really want to communicate and kind of how we trickle that education over time. It's really focused on like the first purchase is kind of defining what is a new kind of soda. That's the goal of that post-purchase flow. Second purchase, we start to get a little bit more into function, a little bit more about fiber, a little bit more about the microbiome. So it's kind of trickling education without like kind of shoving it in your face right at the beginning. That can be a turnoff for a lot of people. But as you get more invested and Olipop becomes a habit, you're drinking it regularly, we want to educate people on, what that's actually meaning for you and, how it can make a difference in your daily life without necessarily starting with that, leading with that. We're leading more with the, it's a new kind of soda rather than it's a sparkling health tonic.
On episode 9, we're joined by Tim Swindle and Scott Brown, co-founders of Paddle Smash, the next backyard game where pickleball meets round net.
And it's just funny, like without really trying, basically, here we're getting like almost all of our sales are from Utah. So there has to be this correlation of like, people have bought it in a particular location and now they're playing it. And so then it's just getting picked up by other people who probably have seen it or played it. And then the other thing, to your point about like, are people going in the stores not knowing what it is? That's the beauty of cell phones these days. I mean, we have QR codes on our packaging, just in general. Like if I'm at a store and I'm like, oh, what's this? I can just whip up on my phone and I'll just look it up,
search it,
and just see what it's all about, and just see like we've got, obviously we're on social media, people can see it being played. So that's another just beauty of technology today where, even if you're not familiar to it, if people aren't familiar on shelves, they can kind of quickly just look it up when they're standing in front of it and see if it's something they're interested in.
Yeah, I think, it just takes a lot of luck to get something to move. It just, it does. I've tried hundreds of times to get products off the ground. Some of them have and some of them haven't, and a lot of it's luck. But I think Tim has a great line, which is just that you're trying to spread out your surface area of luck. And so just like,
I like that.
We're trying to get product out there and hope that something catch. And it's a little spray and pray, but I think it's more strategic than that. I think we're like very strategic about where we're seeding this. And then, there is a little bit like hope it catches. But again, the pioneers in the space, it's been that they've like spread the word. And then it started to catch with a few of those people they spread it out to. And then it just kind of gets enough momentum. It's like a train, like it takes a lot of motion. It takes a lot of energy to get the train going. But once it gets going, it holds the momentum pretty well.
For this one, we pulled from episode 12 with Jennifer McKay Newton, founder and CEO, and Hannah Toperoff, social media and marketing coordinator at Define Me Fragrances, a fragrance brand all about bringing out emotions through fragrance.
So I began kind of connecting scent to an inspiration or a word or meaning. And so then that turned into its own line of candles because people really resonated with the emotional connection to the candle. Because scent is very connected to the limbic system of your brain. When you smell something, it goes directly there, which is the emotional center of your brain. And that's where And at the time, there were studies out on it, but it's just kind of starting. And so throughout the years, it's gotten more, more studies are out, how scent really does affect you and does connect to well-being.
When I look at how you describe Kahana on your site and how I experience it, it is 100% on the mark.
Good.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So you guys do an amazing job.
Thank you. We also do quizzes, and like the quiz we have, we've had, I don't know, people take it.
Yeah,
and
I
they're
was
just
gonna
like,
say,
oh my God, that's so true.
We put
That's
a
right.
lot of effort into making those quizzes accurate. Like they're fun to take. Like everybody loves taking an online quiz, but we really put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into being careful with it in the way that, like, okay, the result that you get, we really want it to reflect what we actually think, what scent we actually think that you're going to enjoy. And a lot of people have been like, wow, this was dead on. Like you told me I was an Audrey and I bought Audrey and I love it.
Yeah, there's very distinct like scents, like people like fresh and floral, or they're like more spicy. Somebody can say, oh, I really just don't like scent. I like really soft scents. I'm like, I know which one you're gonna like. It's almost an instinct for us.
Yeah.
And we have like less than a 1% return rate from our online business, which is
wow.
This next one is from episode 15 with Sergio Tache, founder and CEO of Dossier Perfumes, an affordable perfume brand with luxury scents.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot because I think you learn so much by talking with other people, and obviously more senior people, that's great, but also even more junior people. You can always gain something, and you never know where the next great piece of advice for your life or for your career is going to come from. And it's all about listening and integrating that and say, okay, that makes sense for me. That maybe makes a little bit less sense for me. But I think it's tremendously important to go through that process. I always say I think I've been very lucky in my life. But I also think that to some extent I've created my own luck, and you create that luck through the conversations you have, the opportunities you see, and seizing those opportunities. I'm a firm believer in what you just said.
Like how do you, yeah, I mean, you actually answered a lot of it, but how do you leverage YouTube and video to like really, in your marketing and drive people to action? Because I feel like the perfume industry in general has used that tactic for decades, right? Like Chanel and Dior, right? Whenever you're watching a commercial about a fragrance, it's not really about the fragrance. It's just like mini like soap opera-ish story that they're telling that like evokes this like feeling or experience. I'm almost wondering, like, is there a new age version of that you all are doing too, that like inspires people to action? And like, I'm curious, like, why do you think video works for you, and like, what are you doing that you think is working?
So I think this goes beyond what you just asked. I think it's a super interesting question, and it goes beyond just the influencer marketing part. Just to finish on the influencer marketing side, the way we work with them is that there are some key messages that we want to get across, and we will be very specific about that. But how they get those key messages across depends on them. They're creators, they know their audience. If you try and script them too much, it's going to feel scripted and it's not going to work. It needs to be their voice transmitting these 3 key points, whatever those key points are. And we're firm believers in that. And we work with a variety of influencers. We're not very specific in terms of, okay, it needs to be this kind of niche, this kind of atmosphere. No, everybody likes perfume, or at least a lot of people like perfume. We're very comfortable working with a large variety of influencers. Now, going back to what you just said, which is super interesting, what kind of message we're trying to convey, and that's something we thought about from the get-go. We always felt that luxury perfumery was this very aspirational, inaccessible industry where it's all about aspiration. The typical Dolce & Gabbana ad is like, some super messy guy with a half naked woman on a beautiful beach somewhere and Dolce Gabbana.
Conveniently,
So,
they have a bottle of
you know.
perfume on the beach. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because everybody does that. So that we want to be the opposite of that. And by the way, don't get me wrong, these are fantastic brands. We're nobody's compared to the Chanel's and Dolce Gabbana's of the world. They're extraordinary brands, but we wanted to not be that. We wanted to be a much more warm, accessible brand. There's a big component of education in everything we try to do. So just to give you an example, if you look at the names of our products, it's not like, I don't know, Smoke in the Night or whatever crazy name they come up with. It's all about the ingredients, floral marshmallow, got it. Every single name is constructed with the olfactive family and then the main ingredient of that perfume.
Second to last, we have episode 18 with Matt Orlick, founder of Football Supplements.
Yeah, I think that is the case for most industries. I think the football market it's in an infant stage in terms of supplementation.
Okay, interesting.
I don't even know what a carb is. It's extremely funny. And based on, I said, the background I have in terms of psychology, stuff like that, when I try and self-analyze why that is and how they can get away with so much, it seems to be in all parts of life. The more authentic your day-to-day is, and more authentic your activities are, the more you get away with in life. Like for them, football comes so easy because they just love the game so much that they can kind of afford to eat shit and the body compromises, where in other walks of life, you wouldn't be able to have an office job and, eat the way they do and still perform at the highest level. So they've been able to get away with a lot more than they probably should, but the game's becoming increasingly more demanding and players are catching on that if they do eat right, it can change your performance. So that's going to make, a big difference, I think, in the years to come when people start to realize how important it is.
With education, at least from Malomo, like post-purchase, we see a lot of the need for educating, obviously, your customer. We've talked about it a lot, your consumer. And so how do you actually roll out those strategies? Like after, say, someone is buying from you, like what does the post-purchase journey look like for Football Subs?
Yeah, once they come into the funnel, we're trying to educate them also on the actual specific products and how to use them and at what certain timings. That's probably the main focus for us. And also the continual educational process as to new findings, new science in terms of the landscape of nutrition.
And our last feature for the Best of 2022 DTC Brand Conversations is from episode 21 with Luke Kingma, creative director at Bored Cow, the leading brand for animal-free dairy milk.
To start is explaining what animal-free dairy is and why it is. And I think we'll move into the actual branding decisions from there. But I think as a baseline, animal-free dairy is an oxymoron, up until just, less than 10 years ago, really, anything that was dairy was not animal-free and anything that was animal-free was not dairy, right? Those two things were incompatible because dairy has always come from cows, as we all know. And so what has changed over the last 10 years is that we're actually using a technology that's been around for about 50 years called precision fermentation. And this is a process by which we can teach tiny invisible microflora how to ferment different things. 50 years ago, we started to use it to produce insulin. As most people know, insulin, historically comes from pigs, but human insulin, which is something that obviously is much more compatible with our bodies, is something that we learned to teach microflora how to make. And so, most insulin now is made through this process of precision fermentation. From there, it was actually cheese making that started using precision fermentation. There's an enzyme called rennet that traditionally comes from the stomach linings of like small cows and other kind of ruminants. And so now most cheesemakers use precision fermentation to make enzymes without needing to slaughter a baby animal in order to get those enzymes, right? And so
Love that.
now we can use it to produce animal proteins for food making. And so Perfect Day, who's our technology partner with Bored Cow, has figured out a way to make milk protein, specifically whey protein, which is one of the two main proteins found in cow's milk, through fermentation instead of by milking a cow. And so, and then, the follow-up question is always like, why? Why are you going
Right.
through all of that effort to produce something that already exists? And the answer, of course, is that, our food system accounts for around 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. It's responsible for up to 80% of the deforestation that's happened over the last century. It's responsible for about 70% of all freshwater withdrawals. And most of that is because of the meat and dairy industry, which is an incredibly energy and resource intensive industry that also produces a lot of emissions, and specifically methane. And so, by making milk protein with microflora, we can generate up to 97% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, use up to 99% less water, and up to 60% less non-renewable energy than milk protein that is sourced from cow's milk. Going in, we knew that we wanted to build a nostalgic brand that both sort of like harkened back to the golden age of like cereal mascots and like back of the cereal box games and mazes, and things like that sort of we grew up with, but also a product that could become in 20 years the brand and the product that today's kids look back on and say, I grew up with Bored Cow. And I'm now nostalgic for Bored Cow. And so looking ahead to try to create a brand that is nostalgic in the future at the same time. And so we knew that we wanted to build this like character-driven, immersive brand universe. I'm a writer by trade. And so like, I just wanted to make a universe that I could play into, to be honest. But I also knew that like, that was something that if you did it the right way, that people would fall in love with. And so worked with manufacturer, and they worked with an amazing illustrator named Katie Perez, who drew all of the cow characters and universe herself. We went through a whole bunch of different types of cartoon cows. I could show you a deck that we have that's like all the other different types of cow characters that we explored, but it was sort of like the simple, round, sort of minimalist, quirky cow that I think really sort of like won all of our hearts. And so, so we went with that. And then we decided to create archetypes based on, the story of Bored Cow is that for 10,000 years, cows have been working for us. These days, they're working in factory farms, producing milk for us. They're spending very little time outside, very little time with their calves. And we think that's wrong. We think that's sad. And we believe cows should be free to do whatever they want. We believe that cows should be bored. We think that bored cows are happier cows. And so, we've sort of taken that idea and run with it. And so we started to think about like, what would cows do if they had all the free time in the world? And then we asked ourselves that question, what would we do if we had all the free time in the world? What did we want to be when we grew up? And it was, things like, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be, a rock star. I wanted to be a professional skateboarder. And we're like, well, let's just like match those up. Let's make the cows sort of extensions of our inner child,